Comes the weekend, comes Michael Snyder, and of course, we take a look at what's happening in your local motion picture theater with Michael. Hi, Michael. How's it going?
Pretty well, Alex, and hello, listeners. Greetings from California, and hope that you guys have escaped flu and freezing weather wherever you are, or any natural disasters that might be lurking. Speaking of disasters, we have our lead review here. It's not really a disaster. The movie is called The Maze Runner, The Death Cure. And as the third and final installment in the Maze Runner movie trilogy based on the Maze Runner books, which I guess are bestsellers by an author named James Dashner, the cure for this is the death of the franchise. In any event, it's the third movie in the Maze Runner trilogy, wherein a virus has decimated the Earth and turned most of the population into, I don't know, rage-fueled zombie types? I don't know. The uninfected are trying to protect themselves. The well-off and those affiliated with the, get the name, Wicked Corporation, WCKD. It's an anagram for something, or an acrostic, whatever those things are. But it sounds like Wicked. Anyway, these guys seem to run things, and they live in a walled-off city known as, I guess, the last city. The rest of the world looks pretty trashed. The only salvation may lie in the young kids who the corporation trapped in the titular maze in the first movie, because one or more of these kids might be immune to the virus and thus provide a cure. Could this be the last dystopian YA young adult novel adaptation? One can only hope. Anyway, it's an okay popcorn movie and wraps up the story in case you found yourself watching the first two. And the very first one was, in my mind, better than the Hunger Games movies or those terrible Shailene Woodley ones, Divergent, Insurgent, Allergic, whatever. This one, though, is only for those who saw the other chapters of The Maze Runner. The effects are good enough, as is the action. The young actors playing the kids, led by Dylan O'Brien and Game of Thrones' Thomas Sangster, are okay as they weasel their way into the city and try to bring down the corporation. And the main adults in the cast are all pros, including Patricia Clarkson as the head wicked scientist, Aidan Gillen, Littlefinger from Game of Thrones. So, I wonder if this guy's a villain. He plays, I think, the wicked security chief, and no, he's not a good guy. And Giancarlo Esposito and Barry Pepper as older rebels protecting the innocent and uninfected outsiders and fighting the system. Director Wes Ball keeps things, on the ball. But again, if you haven't run the maze already, there's no real reason to start here. Okay, coming in second on our list, but actually a much better film than The Maze Runner, is Please Stand By. If you're a devoted fan of Star Trek or some comparable sci-fi or fantasy property, especially the sort who attends conventions and or cosplays, you know about shippers. There are super fans who in some cases write fan fiction that brings certain characters in the franchises together in desired or unconventional romantic couplings, relationships, thus shippers. Even, say, Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock are lovers in the classic, I guess you'd call it the classic fan fiction of this nature. Please Stand By is about one of those writing superfans, but not really a shipper. Well played by Dakota Fanning. Wendy is an autistic Star Trek fan living in a group home in San Francisco who so loves the show that she's labored on a script for a screenwriting competition that Star Trek's studio of record has organized. She needs to submit her entry before the deadline or miss out on possibly winning the grand prize, which, I don't know, maybe they shoot the script. I don't know what the grand prize is. It doesn't matter. When she realizes it's too late to mail the thing, she sets off for Hollywood alone, except for her faithful Pooch, to hand-deliver the 500-page script in time. This, of course, alarms her therapist in the group home and her estranged sister, and all the while, Wendy hears the voices of Spock and Kirk in her head, with Spock providing comfort and direction as she goes on her not-so-merry way to Hollywood. Of course, challenges and misadventures await our plucky heroine on her odyssey. Please Stand By is sweet and works largely due to the compassionate script, sensitive direction, and fine performances. Hey, wait, that's all you need for a decent film. Toni Collette plays Wendy's therapist. Patton Oswalt shows up as a cop who encounters Wendy on her quest. It's a very endearing film with really solid performances. Is it a world shaker? Is it great? Hey, it's January. People just put out movies to, just have something in the theaters at this time of year. And occasionally you come across something nice like Please Stand By. One of the best films I saw last year, and it's only now getting released in the States, is, I believe, Italy's submission for Best Foreign Film. It's called A Ciambra, and it's the best film we're going to be talking about today. It's basically one of those gritty, handheld cinema verite type movies about the kids, mostly in a small Romani community in Calabria in Italy, and specifically a kid named Pio, who at 14 is a runner for the crime element here and wants to be like a hotshot when he grows up. So he's amidst all these people, and he finds himself in over his head because, stuff doesn't always go well amidst the underclass and in a crime situation. And the Romani, I guess gypsies are not well regarded by, non-Romani people in any community. They're generally considered thieving and less than savory characters, regardless of the fact that you get a close-up look at members of this community. I think a lot of the people in the movie are, in fact, amateurs that are vivid and wonderful in the portrayal here. So the kid decides he's going to help out his brother after something really goes wrong with the caper, and it gets very, very dicey for him and the rest of his family. So like the local Italians, there are African refugees, and there are Romani in this big stew pot in Calabria. It's powerful stuff. It made me think of The Bicycle Thief, Vittorio De Sica's movie. I thought it was really pretty wonderful. You wouldn't know any of the actors in it, but you should know the writer-director's name, Jonas Carpagnano. I think he's got a great future ahead of him. He's done a few things already, but this knocked me out. The Clapper was a big disappointment for me. A talented cast is wasted in a kind of misbegotten, very minor mix of social commentary and romantic comedy about a sad sack named Eddie, played by, an actor I like, a comic actor I like, Ed Helms from The Office. He works with his best pal, played by Tracy Morgan from SNL and 30 Rock, as an infomercial audience member who laughs, asks questions, and claps on cue at these infomercials and is paid for the job. One day, the host of a late-night talk show, played by Russell Peters, who's most people know is a massive stand-up comedian from Canada. He plays a Jimmy Kimmel type here, and he does a bit on his show where he a little illustrates that the same guy is in the audience for all these infomercials. That would be Eddie. So the host mocks him and decides to find out who he is, dubbing him the Clapper. And meanwhile, Eddie's struggling, and he's humiliated about this and angry because if he's outed like this, it's going to impact his chances for being a paid audience member on more infomercials and also ruin his chances with the sweet cashier at the local gas station, played by Amanda Seyfried. So it wants to be a meditation on the perils and demeaning fallout from 15 minutes of fame in modern media. It appears to have been on the shelf for more than a couple of years. I mean, it was shot in 2016, mere months before the death of Alan Thicke, who appears here as Alan Thicke doing an infomercial. I'm wondering if anyone actually read the script before signing on to do this one. Writer-director Dito Montiel was responsible for some other mediocre movies, including The Puzzling Man Down with Shia LaBeouf and The Puzzling Boulevard with Robin Williams. In an okay heist movie, this one strains for laughs, for emotional warmth, and for insights. I was very disappointed in The Clapper. Hard to recommend it. And we'll just wrap up quickly with a guilty pleasure, an off-the-wall horror comedy called Mom and Dad that opened last week and probably can be found streaming, written and directed by Brian Taylor, starring Nicolas Cage as the dad, chewing the scenery from the get-go, and Selma Blair as the mom. The basic situation is there is some kind of worldwide mass hysteria where parents turn violently against their children, only their own children. So after doing awful things to their kids, they don't care about the neighbor's kids. So what ends up happening is we follow the daughter and son of the Nicolas Cage and Selma Blair characters as they try to escape certain death at the hands of their parents. It was fun. What can I tell you? It was fun. And Lance Hendrickson has a small role as Nicolas Cage's dad in this thing. And you can, hey, do the math as to what's going to happen in that dynamic. I enjoyed Mom and Dad. Again, a truly guilty pleasure. What are you doing? What are you watching? Anything good?
No, not at all. So
this week's episode of the X-Files was hilarious and terrific.
I don't watch it anymore. I found it dull.
Yeah, this one is one, if you know the characters, if you get a chance to watch this one, written by Darren Morgan, it's called The Lost Art of Forehead Sweat. It is great. And the only thing you need to watch in this run of the X-Files, I would bet you. Other than that, I've been enjoying Philip K. Dick's Electric Dreams. It's kind of a Black Mirror-ish thing based on the great sci-fi and fantasy novelist's work. It's not always terrific, but it is out there, and I believe available on Amazon.
Okay, well, not terrific is not necessarily a recommendation.
A couple of them are good. Come on.
Well, a couple of them are good, but Black Mirror, all of them were good. So right. I mean, anyway, tell them where they can find you, Michael.
On Twitter at Culture Blaster, and on Facebook at Michael Snyder's Culture Blast page, where you can hear Alex and I any old time you want if you're not listening on Roku or GABNet.
Okay, and we'll see you next week, ladies and gentlemen, and there's more GABNet coming right up.